Do you feel that? Is it just me, or is there a wee bit of a chill in the air? The days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer. We're about to hit Halloween. I can feel it in my bones. Myself. Welcome, foolish mortals, to another Heritage Live. Today we are going to get into the spirit of things and explore some of the most fabulous artifacts in our collection. 'Tis the season for spiders, vampires, witches, ghouls, and ghosts. It is the time for creepy dolls, haunted fairs, and a little too much candy. I will be your ghost host this afternoon. My name is Princess Jasmine Moore. You may know me as the Heritage Manager and Curator of Collections here at Coquitlam Heritage. I would like to thank the enchanting Emily, who is directing our production today, and the amazing Adriana, who will be delivering me my pretties. Hold on just 1 second. Something's coming to me. I'm seeing someone laughing at me and my cheesy jokes. I see a ghoulishly good time in your future. So I have this friend related to our first object. They started a career as a psychic, but gave it up because they couldn't see a future in it. Just kidding. The next object has a very ancient history and may or may not tell the future. If it speaks to you, it was meant for you, as they say. So, first up, we have Madame Lenormand's Gypsy fortune-telling cards from 1900. Cartomancy was popular beginning in the 18th, and let's be honest, it's still going strong. Have you been on TikTok lately, or is that just me? Card reading was a popular trend in the late 18th and early 19th century France, and many took the fortunes they received to be as the truth. Marie Lenormand was an 18th century Parisian fortune teller. Today, Lenormand is still known as one of the most famous fortune tellers to have ever lived since the ancient oracles. She showed an interest in tarot and fortune telling from a very young age. Some reports suggest that Lenormand was as young as 7 when she began telling fortunes and was active for over 40 years. When the King of Naples came to see her, Lenormand predicted he would soon die as a result of execution. Sure enough, he was hung in 1816. Some of her most famous clients might be the Emperor Napoleon and Empress Josephine. The first deck of cards named after her contained 54 cards and was produced 2 years after her death in 1843. In 1845, a second deck was released, but this one only contained 36 cards, and it was called the Petite Normande. The deck we have is an American version of the Petite Normande produced in the early 1900s. This particular deck has actually handwritten instructions here on the back, letting you know what the possible interpretation is for each card. The 4 suits can vary regionally. The original layout for these cards was a 6x6 grid, and it was kind of played as a board game, with the number 36, the cross, as the start, and the number 35, the anchor, hope, as the end. Today, the cards are used for divination by laying out 3 to 5 cards left to right, divided into past, present, and future. And the grid is usually set up to be a 3x3, 3 cards in 3 rows. The present self is usually the center card on the second row, and the other cards are interpreted as how they relate to or influence it. And we can tell that this is an American version of the deck because the boat actually has an American flag depicted, and that would change depending on where these cards were reproduced. So the flag would change to reflect that country. The interpretation of the cards also changes depending on the country where they are being interpreted. tarot cards were also a type of game when they were first introduced. In fact, it was a game similar to bridge, which actually is reportedly still played in Italy and France today. Jean-Baptiste Eliot was one of the first people to publish a definitive guide to the tarot in about the late 1700s. He gave meaning to each of the cards, incorporating beliefs about astronomy and the four elements. He claimed to have borrowed heavily from the Book of Thoth, who you might otherwise know as the Egyptian god of wisdom. In 1909, the tarot deck got a major update by William Ryder and A.E. Waite, including illustrations on the cards and an updated printed guide. In this version, the stories layer on top of one another when placed together. Today, tarot cards and their interpretation can also vary by region, but it is generally agreed that there is a major arcana consisting of 22 cards without suits and a minor arcana consisting of 56 cards divided into 4 suits of 14 cards each. So here you can see a modern day tarot deck. Thank you, Jenny, for loaning me this. So what is the difference between these two decks? Lenormand is apparently more punchy and to the point, where tarot cards are more thematic and are usually driven more by a story. If you want an answer already, then Lenormand is your lady. Tarot cards have complex imagery that has to be deciphered in order to get to the meaning of the card. So this here is the King of Wands, and he's holding a staff of some kind, and there looks like there's some wolves in the background. And depending on, what kind of question you're asking, you would look at the various elements on the card to kind of get your meaning from it. Lenormand cards are read to be positive, negative, or neutral, while tarot cards are classified by arcana, suits, or as part of a tarot court. The major arcana in tarot decks address major life themes, while minor arcana usually address themes in daily life. There are also 4 suits, being the cups, wands, pentacles, and swords, which correspond to different elements in a tarot court. There are 78 cards in a tarot deck. If the card is upside down, the meaning changes as well. Whereas Lenormand, as I said earlier, has 36 cards, each with a positive, negative, or neutral meaning, and there are no arcana. Lenormand is the best at showing the what, whereas the tarot will help you with the how. Lenormand is the who, what, where, and when of a situation, while the tarot often reveals the deeper soul understanding of a situation. That brings us to our next divination tool, fortune-telling tool, which is a recent addition to our education collection. These are actually known as Cow Chim, also called lottery poetry, apparently. It is a fortune-telling practice that originated in China, in which the person asking the question requests an answer from a sacred oracle, and often is performed in Buddhist or Taoist temples in front of an altar. Westerners often call these Chinese fortune-telling sticks, which is how we could tell that this is, a reproduction, because it says it right on the instruction manual. An American version has been sold under the name of Chi-Chi sticks since 1915. There are usually a total of 100 in a cup, and the American version typically has 100, but this one actually only has 60, and the sticks are usually shaken in the cylinder, and then the first stick that jumps out is supposed to, be the indicator of your future. So the advice is to shake deftly with confidence, read out the numbered passage from the text, ponder deeply the future so indicated, realize its applicability to your future, so that it becomes the living present. So I drew number 9. Shall we tell my future? The fates declare is very fine. So today is a fine day for me. If you would win success in life, be honest, straight, and true, for otherwise your plans will fail and ill luck will ensue. Oh, interesting. There is a great temptation in store for you, and you will get your wish. Well, that's nice. Well, all my 90s children, please grab your magic 8 balls as we move on to a more simplified version of predicting the future. So this here is a game in our collection. It's called Mythical. This is a question and answer game. And to play, you have this board, and then there's a couple of different overlays for the main board. And you would put that on, and then you would pick your corresponding card to place on top. So there's geography, conundrums, and miscellaneous. And this one has been a bit jerry-rigged, so you put it on there and, ask your question, spin it, and miraculously your answer would be indicated by the board itself. Ours reportedly dates to about 1940, but these actually go back as far as 1915. Just like magic, huh? With our future behind us, let's move on to our next more magical topic, shall we? Magic is an art of performance with a long history. It is reported that the first depictions of magicians date to the time of the Egyptian pyramids. The first magic tricks were performed in ancient Egypt by a magician named Gedi. A 3rd century Greek writer referred to the cups and balls trick. In the Middle Ages, people were persecuted as witches. But that's a whole different discussion involving gender, classism, ageism. You don't really want me getting into that right now. At this time, there were a lot of street performers who did a little magic. The trick was, if you admitted you were openly performing a magic trick, you were typically not persecuted. William Vincent was a 17th century magician who performed for royalty, and his name carried on throughout time. He was actually known as Hocus Pocus. The Age of Enlightenment brought science into the world of magic, using magnets and other advances in technology. Sir Walter Scott, also known as the Wizard of the North, was the first person to use marketing to assert his infamy. He made his own newspaper, advertisements, and even had his own theater. Many of you have likely heard of Harry Houdini, the famous magician who was known for his daring escapes, the most famous of which was the metamorphosis or substitution trunk trick, in which Harry magically escaped a locked cabinet and trunk while tied up. What kid doesn't like to amaze their parents with a magic trick? Let's take a look at some of the amateur magic kits in our collection. So first up we have this kit, which is called Master Magic. It dates to the 1940s. This is a Sherm's collection creation. It is weird, mysterious, and marvelous. It is a collection of world-famous magic tricks. These tricks do not require an abundance of skill and can easily be mastered by anyone. Sherm's Magic was founded by Robert Sherman, a dealer and inventor as well. Robert Sherman was born in Minsk, Russia in 1892. When he was just 2 years old, his parents moved him to Brooklyn, New York. He lived briefly in New Jersey before settling in Connecticut. In the 7th grade, he quit school to join the vaudeville stage with the Barlow and Wilson minstrel troupe. He ran across a magic shop while he was in Philadelphia and was inspired to open his own. He bought a 3-store building and hired Carl Brema to assist with the manufacture of metal magic tricks. I think that he was responsible for the 3-ring trick, if you're familiar with that one. He also opened a location in Canada, 2 more in New York, and finally opened Sherm's in Bridgeport, Connecticut, after serving in World War I. Some of his famous tricks were the vanishing alarm clock, the second load gimmick in the uncanny silk casket, cast rice bowls which may be tossed into the air without spilling any water, Noma the woman of 1,000 lives, the butchery of a small girl in a small cabinet, levitation of Princess Adele, where a girl rises 5 feet from the backdrop, having to use a short ladder in order to pass a hoop over her. Next up, we have our Hocus Pocus, or Conjuring game by Spears, which dates to the early 1900s. You might remember the namesake of this game, William Vincent, aka Hocus Pocus. This magic set was produced sometime in the early 1900s and contains a marble vase, obedient ball, traveling corks, jumping peg, Weisenheimer coin trick, and others. It is very creepy and old at first glance. One gets the feeling that you might conjure something else if you perform any of the tricks in this box. This set was produced by J.W. Spears & Sons, who is also a manufacturer of board games. The company was founded as an import and export business in 1879 in Fürth near Nuremberg, Germany, which is also the toy capital. Initially, the Spears Company made photo frames, waste paper baskets, and table mats, but they branched out to board games around 1880. The Spears family was Jewish. Some members of the family moved to England and anglicized their name from Spear to Spear around 1932. They opened a factory in Berlin and gradually moved their productions from their German factory, which was eventually destroyed during World War II. During World War II, there was also the forced sale of the German branch of the Spears Games to Hans Poor. It is reported that 12 members of the Spears family were murdered in concentration camps. Games produced by the company in Germany during the war actually reflected the aims of the Nazi Party, even moving some of the borders in some of the travel games to reflect their claims to specific territories. After the war, the company, which had been partially destroyed by the war, was returned to the widows of Herman and Richard Spear. In 1954, this company acquired the rights to produce Scrabble outside of North America, allowing them to make a comeback as one of the most important game manufacturers in Europe. In 1984, the factory in Nuremberg closed. In 1994, the company was acquired by Mattel, which absorbed its assets and brands into its own line of products. In 2017, Frances and Hazel Spear donated a collection of games to the Nuremberg Toy Museum, reflecting the games the company produced, like social parlor games, strategy games, dexterity games, occupational games, card games, children's books, boxed magic sets, outdoor games, and many more.